All right, so here we go. All right, then. So
Absolutely.
this is another episode of the Uncivilized Arts podcast. My name is Birmingham Hazan, but I go by Bandit Haze in the online space. And today, my guest. Oh, I should have asked. Do I say Dick Games or should I use your actual
I,
name?
no, Andy's fine,
Oh, cool,
honestly. Yeah.
Andy. Andy, yeah, Andy from uh, uh, bro, I messed that up.
Oh, it's all right. No, you did
um,
great.
Player One Trading. Okay, so there we go.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, wanted to talk to you about that and just general geekiness,
Um,
games and whatever else might not come up. But before we get into all of that, tell the people a little about who you are.
cheers, Andy. Thank you. I'm Andy Howard. I live in Rochdale, which is a million miles away from London. We're up north, so just outside of Manchester. Myself and my wife started a small business just under 6 months ago, and we're just trying to grow it at the moment. Business is called Player One Trading, and we've done a couple of conventions, and we're trying to run a website, which is not that great, not that successful in all honesty. I think I need to have a good look at the website, but our main aim is to get a physical brick and mortar shop. Um, we were looking at summer 2023, but I gotta be honest with you, it's more looking like summer 2024, possibly
Mm.
in the future. But we're just enjoying. In all honesty, though, you're just saying about geek culture, and I'm a big fan of your YouTube channel. I've been following you for years on there, and
Oh, thank you,
love
thank you.
all. I'm always watching your videos, love interacting with them. And I've got we got a 7-year-old son, and he asked me a couple of weeks ago, I said, what's your favourite thing to do? Because I was asking him, what's your favourite thing at school? And I, I took a minute to think about it. Your initial gut reaction is like spending time with you, obviously, son. That's my favourite thing to do. But obviously, it's up there. But genuinely, my favourite thing to do is to just talk films with somebody who else loves films. So
Okay, we might have a
yeah,
few things to
and
talk about with that role. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
All right. So you said what you just outside Manchester?
yeah, Rochdale. So it's
Okay.
around Greater Manchester. There's a couple of towns dotted about that you might have heard of or seen in the news for various reasons. But Rochdale, Bury, Bolton, that's our that's our like Greater Manchester where we're from up here. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I haven't been up that ways. I don't think I've been Rochdale specifically, but I haven't been Manchester for a while now. I think last time I went was like,
right.
it's got to be like 6, 7 years ago, maybe even pushing that.
Yeah,
But I do like Manchester. I do like that area. It's a nice part of
yeah,
town. Um, I don't know. Would you? I mean, you mentioned North. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's north of London, but I mean, would you still call
yeah.
that north, or is that more Midlands though? Or do you guys still say refer to
Yeah,
areas as
yeah,
northern?
yeah. We call it it's the north. Anything. I don't even know where the breakwater is. Where the point is where it becomes north. But there's
Yeah.
obviously a lot a lot further north than us. Like you can go
Yeah.
Newcastle. Like that's north. Or Scotland,
Right.
not
You know what I
proper
mean?
north. But yeah, I don't. It's strange that why we refer to ourselves as the north. Yeah, I didn't really think of it that way. I went in.
Yeah.
Don't go to Manchester city centre that often. But went a couple of weeks ago. Went to see Ant Man, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
took my niece. And the city is just it's growing outwards. It's becoming densely populated. And there used to be central Manchester used to be Market Street, the Arndale, Piccadilly Gardens, and now that's just it's just a fraction of what Manchester is now. It is booming
Mm,
out, and yeah, it's lovely. You should get up when you can, and
no,
yeah, great place. Yeah,
for sure. What did you think of Ant Man actually? Because that seems to be getting some mixed opinions. You know.
yeah. Well, I didn't mind it. I thought it was okay. I'm not the biggest MCU fan. I think anything post Endgame is sort of a bit lost on me, and I think that the TV shows are a big investment, and I've not watched any of the
Mm.
TV shows. Um, I'm trying to think what have we gone through just now. That was Phase 4. previously, and it's phase
Yeah, I think
five
it's
now
just
that's just kicked off.
five. I mean, I think I've never been counting the
Yeah.
phases, but yeah, I think phase five started.
So phase four. I think the only other film I've seen is uh, uh, the Doctor Strange that I
Yeah,
watched earlier, from about a year ago now. The only reason I watched Doctor Strange was because it was directed by Sam Raimi, and again I think it was lost on me because well, from friends and people I've seen on the internet, it's telling me you should watch some of the TV shows that it sort of fills the gaps there. But I also felt like the film really didn't have Sam Raimi's stamp on it. There was seldom parts of his DNA filmmaking in there, and it was very episodic, and it would have been better to, in my opinion, something really bold. Like the ending was quite bold, where you see the third eye appearing on Doctor Strange, and I thought that
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
that would have been better at the start of the film, something really bold statement like that to give it its, a big. But sorry, I've like
Oh no,
diverted like
no, not at all,
greatly
not
from
at
Ant
all,
Man there, but yeah,
not at all.
genuinely, I didn't mind Ant Man, and didn't think it was fantastic. There was some good laughs in there. I like the laughs. I thought it was kind of sad. It just moved very quickly on from to a soundstage, basically. Like you had the first 10 minutes of the film where it was set with Scott Lang walking around and interacting with public. I thought that was more interesting, funnily enough, and like his position in society now than the actual stuff in the what's it called? The is it the quantum verse? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Where it gets
quantum realm.
like
Yeah.
quantum realm? Yeah, I thought that was way more interesting. It really reminded me of there's an ongoing uh, comic that's been going since about 2013. It had a big hiatus. It's called Saga. I don't know if you've ever come across that.
I
And
don't think so. No.
it kind of reminded me of that because there was a lot of all these really out there characters, and there was zero explanation of like so that the guy with the cylinder for a head that shoots the big beam, and there's no explanation of like where's he from? Like why does he look like that? Are there others who look like that? And it was just kind of jumping straight into these people exist and they've been around for a long time, and you jump on board with that. And I thought I quite enjoyed that. I thought it was really bold. I thought it was pretty cool. And but yeah, by the end of it though, I don't think Kang had the impact that potentially like a big overarching villain could have done. It was it seemed like when you see the sorry, we're going into spoilers.
It's cool. It's
uh,
cool. It's cool. It's
when
cool.
you
I
see
could
the
put look. I could put a warning up. It's all good.
oh, I should have said that, mate. Yeah.
So good.
Sorry. When you see at the end the hundreds and thousands of cans, I thought it reduced him down a little bit. I think you want that one central figurehead like Thanos, you can follow and relate to, and it just seemed a bit redundant by the end of it when you see the thousands of them on screen at the same time. But I don't know. No, it's early days yet, isn't it? In the next phase, and they've got the big what's coming up next? The Kang Dynasty is at 2025. So I support it. I'll invest in it and watch it. I've got some really great memories of going watching the Avengers, both the concluding Avengers film at midnight showings, and such good energy and good vibes there with the whole audience, and it's really good. I work in a college, so I see like the youth at the moment and their relationship with the MCU. That today's World Book Day, for example, and there were a whole gang of students came in dressed as the X-Men. So it's really like something young people have really picked up and I suppose grown up with as well. And they probably look at Iron Man 1 as like an ancient film now. What is it, like 15 years old or something?
Well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
2007, eight. So
yeah,
yeah,
2000,
it's
yeah.
a while back now. Hey.
But yeah, they were very small children at the time when that came out. So they've grown, and seen it expand and supported it right the way through. So that's an endearing thing. So But yeah. Have you've seen the film then? What did you think of?
Yeah, no, I've seen. I saw it a couple of weeks ago now. Real quick before I say what I think of it though, is that so anybody watching or listening to this podcast, by the time it actually airs, it probably be a few weeks from when we're actually recording it.
Yeah.
So the whole World Book Day thing, yeah, it's not gonna be World
Oh
Book
yeah.
Day by the time you hear this
Yeah.
podcast. Just so you know, in case anybody's wondering, wait a minute, what day is what? Yeah, it's yeah. But yeah, no, I liked Ant-Man. I mean, of course, I know that just because I like it doesn't mean everyone's gonna like it, and you know that whole thing. And you're always gonna get different opinions when you watch these stuff. But I was kind of like surprised that so many people didn't like it because I
Yeah.
thought at the very least it was fine. You know, I mean, I liked it more than just fine, but I thought at the very least it's fine. It didn't seem like as bad as some people make it out to be. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right about the MCU in general. Is that you do kind of have to keep up with a lot of stuff, and it's even more stuff you're going to keep up with the TV shows. And even for someone like myself, who's pretty invested in the MCU, even I'm kind of like slipping at times, like, okay, still haven't seen that one, and that and bit where and there's a special edition for that, and it does get a bit much. And I think they're realizing that, you know, because I did see one announcement from Kevin Feige about slowing down on the TV shows. So I think they're realizing that you can't just put out too much at once because yeah, it's a lot to keep up with, and even the hardcore fans are struggling to keep up with it all. So you are going to get those movies that, like Doctor Strange, for example. I liked Doctor Strange, but yeah, it did rely quite a bit on seeing WandaVision. I mean, if you haven't seen WandaVision, sure, you could understand the story pretty much, but you're missing a lot of context still, you know. So yeah, I feel like they well, hopefully they're realizing that, you know, it is a lot to keep up with, and it's just getting more and more and more. So the more films that they can do, like for example, Wakanda Forever, which doesn't, although it's connected to the overall universe, it doesn't rely on you having seen this before that or this before, you know, anything like that. It's kind of exist within itself, or you know, things like Black Widow, or I guess to some no, what's the other one they did? I can't even remember right now, but they have done a few films that kind of exist within themselves but connect to the
Yeah.
universe. So I feel like the more they can do like that with these, you know, sort of bigger movies that do connect everything, hopefully it means that, you know, people aren't as lost along the way,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, we'll see how it
I
goes.
always I always wonder about like all the overarching plans because I know talking about the first Iron Man. I remember going watching that at the cinema, and then I had no idea about post credit scenes. And then when I came home and I was having a look on YouTube, and then you could see some people talking about the Samuel Jackson cameo at the end and revealing that shield and what was coming next. And then I remember thinking at the time, that's very clever. That's really interesting. So they had that kernel, that seed there, didn't they? That they were going to get to Avengers in 2012. But I wondered how much they were still up for experimenting because I think they were in the early days still up for like giving this a try, giving that a try, and you know mixing it up a little bit, and that kind of putting a stamp at the end of the films, like the it's only something very small, but in the first Thor film, when you see the gauntlet as and it's just in there as an Easter egg, isn't it? But
Yeah.
then it's one of the later films where it gets revealed as like you know it's a copy, it's a fake. I'm right in thinking that. Oh no, I've not seen.
It's been a while, but that
Yeah,
sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, if somebody was the one to correct on that one, then
yeah,
yeah. But I think that
and
sounds about right. But it definitely loads of Easter eggs
yeah,
and bits that they did throughout those movies.
yeah. I think back to the Nolan Batman trilogy, and I'm sure I've heard Nolan talk about they made the first film without thinking too much about the second film, and just the Joker at the end and the card that was just something that they put in there as a nice little nod to you know what could be, and then even with the second film they made the second film without the third film in mind, and it was just something that was going to sort of that, and I think it kind of puts the writers into a position where they've got to think like what have we got, what can we make of this, what we've got, rather than right, we're going to plant the seed here,
Yeah.
and then it's going to bloom way down the line here. I don't know which one's more organic. The way
Mm,
of just dealing with what is, or the way of planting seeds and like trying to weave your way to that end point that you've got there.
yeah, man.
So,
I guess there's pros and cons to both methods in the sense that
hmm,
if you're not thinking about potential sequels, you just make a
hmm,
complete story in and of itself. But then if it's
yeah,
so complete within itself and you do try to make a sequel, it maybe not feels connected.
yeah,
And it's just two separate stories like a TV episode where you got one story there, one story
yeah,
there, but they're not really connected in any real way or
hmm,
anywhere that feels natural. Sometimes you can pull it off and maybe link back to something and but other times it just kind of feels like you just got two completely separate stories that just have the
hmm,
same name and a two on the end. Then the other
yeah,
part of it is that if you make it with that in mind, then I guess that the danger is that you might be putting too many things in there or not resolving things so much, and
hmm,
and then it's like you have a story that doesn't really feel complete.
yeah,
So
totally.
I guess it's really just trying to find a balance between having a complete story, but then if you do have a sequel, having it lead on naturally from that and potentially into
Yeah,
a third movie, which I mean, it can be done, right? But I guess it's a difficult thing to kind of plan out or balance out, and you either go maybe too far one way or too far the other
hmm.
way, and yeah,
I suppose they're becoming so much like the comic books now.
mm,
There's that many superhero films and universes out there you could tap into. Like a death's never really a death, like
yeah, yeah,
Loki, for example. And
right, yeah,
yeah, and like Agent Coulson. I don't know. It just sometimes I kind of prefer that finite, like concrete, like this is where you stand
mm,
with it, and
yeah,
you
well,
keep bringing things back.
consequences and yeah,
Yeah, kind of lowers the stakes a little bit
right,
sometimes, and
and
yeah,
uh,
and then I suppose it's a product at the end of the day, isn't it? And they're going to keep bringing. If something's popular, it's going to come back, isn't it?
mm,
Although having said that, I feel like Iron Man is that's it for Iron Man. Like, well,
it's
Robert
yeah,
Downey Jr. Iron Man, but
yeah.
yeah, maybe somewhere down the line there'll be a cameo or a what if or something like that. But I thought that was very bold. A bold ending.
I mean, they could potentially do like a time travel thing or a multiverse thing, and if they
Hmm.
do, honestly, I'm not sure that'd be a good idea. Certainly not right now,
Yeah,
because like you say, if when you bring people back, it does kind of cheapen things a little bit, and like you say, the stakes are lowered, and it's like, well, why care if you're just gonna go back in time and fix everything?
yeah, yeah.
It does kind of cheapen it. So it's a dangerous area now that they've got like the time travel, the multiverse, because they can just potentially just fix everything real easily. I
Hmm.
hope they don't go down that route, and I hope. Or I mean, I do have faith that they'll
Hmm.
pull off something amazing. Even though a lot of people, I think, are dropping out, a lot of people are losing faith in
Yeah,
Marvel. I still kind of have faith that they're going to pull off something amazing. But yeah, definitely a dangerous area they're stepping into with time travel, multiverse, this, and
yeah.
you know, we'll see how it goes. But
Are you
if
looking
they just do
forward
some cheap
to?
stuff and
Yeah,
yeah,
are you looking forward to Guardians?
yeah, that's out. I think next month or this month. It's out soon, I think.
Next,
Anyway,
right? Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
Guardians 3. It's the last James Gunn
Oh
movie for
yeah,
the
yeah,
MCU as he's taking his new
yeah,
role with DC and
yeah.
heading up and trying to fix that whole mess over there.
Mm.
But yeah, and I'm looking forward to Guardians. I don't know if I'd see it in the cinema. I might wait for this one.
All right.
But it's just like we'll see if I get time to go to the movies. But yeah, if not, then I might just wait. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I
Yeah,
did like the
sit tight.
first two Guardians movies. They're definitely among the
Yeah.
better, in my opinion,
Mm.
MCU films. So yeah, looking forward to part three and seeing how
Mm.
that miniature trilogy resolves.
Cool, cool. Yeah.
All right then. So let's go back to the beginning with
All right.
Andy. So what was it like for you when you kind of realized that you like geeky stuff and card games and like way more than the average person? Like what was that
Yeah.
like for you? And sorry, just
Uh,
think for my foot. So there we go.
uh, trying to think now. I think I was fortunate growing up in the 90s. So the first console I remember getting home was a Mega Drive, and it was kind of lost on me. Like video games existed in the arcades when you go on holiday, so you'd see it's quite basic stuff. I remember Operation Wolf, seeing that like shooting on the screen, and Mortal Kombat, and then getting this Mega Drive. It something clicked of like right now we're getting the experience at home now, and so playing Sonic. What else was big? Fantasia. Me and my brother loved Fantasia when we were kids on the old Mega Drive, and then it was just a mainstay. It was just it was like your favorite toy going to the Mega Drive and playing on the console. And then I remember getting a PlayStation quite early on. I think probably 97 or 98, and then seeing the step up, like the generational difference between 16-bit and 32-bit was like mind blowing. I could hardly comprehend.
Yeah. It's mad
So
now when you
cool.
look back at it, but yeah, back then,
Yeah.
oof, it was.
Yeah. Those, those like generational skips were something really special, weren't they? So yeah, seeing the PlayStation, Tekken 2, Destruction Derby 2, and Wipeout 2097, like those, they just seemed impossible, and I couldn't believe we were we were lucky enough to experience these on our television. Uh, so that was a that was like a big part of our childhood for me and my brother, my older brother growing up. Um, and then it was just something throughout school, like constantly on school. It was just something I do. Come home, it'd be Final Fantasy VII, the Tony Hawk's games. They were a really big influence. GoldenEye as well, loving GoldenEye. I used to play so much GoldenEye, and I just really played games at the time, and even going to a friend's house to try explaining this to like the students I worked with at college. Like multiplayer was something very special. Like multiplayer wasn't something that was a natural part of the game that you would go on straight immediately onto, like a Call of Duty game that you buy now. Um, I remember going having sleepovers at like friends' houses, um, and and you'd be talking weeks about like sizing each other up, how good they were on Tony Hawk's, how good were you on GoldenEye, and like trying to figure them out. And then Judgment Day would come, and you go around. I remember going up to my mate Sean Gorton, and I think it was like his 30th birthday or something, and sitting down in his house, and we've been talking for weeks about GoldenEye and about how much we've been playing it, like completing levels on Secret Agent, and there was a lot of smack talk going on. And then we sat down to play multiplayer, and I got battered, and that's when I started getting my head around like striping, and you were sharing tips because you couldn't go on barely go on the internet and find this stuff out. So that was really eye opening, and just some really good memories there. And then when I got to 16, just trying to make decisions about your life then at that point, and got into catering, and then worked in hotels for years. And but then at one point, I started working for GameStation. So I don't know if you
Oh yeah,
remember
yeah,
GameStation. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. We got to talk about that. So was it
wow.
around 2005? I guess we're up to about now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
2000, 2005. I was at university, and I thought uni would be a bit of a DOS. Just turn up, do a few lectures, smile, get an essay done, your job done. But it turns out university is really hard, and but I had a part-time job at GameStation, and that's when I dropped out of uni very foolishly as a young man, and went working at GameStation full time. So that was the next 3 years of my life working at GameStation, and in fact, the first day I worked at GameStation was when Grand Theft Auto San Andreas was released, and it was a very busy day in work. Yeah, there were queues. Um, Everybody wanted that game, and there were boxes and boxes of it just flying off the shelf. And there was so much hype about that game because Vice City was such a big hit, and such a a big experience, and another like very no, graphically very like similar to Grand Theft Auto 3, but they'd really fine-tuned, sandbox gameplay. Not to the nth degree that they have done now, but at the point where a very big step up. So yeah, San Andreas really popular, and then I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed working in Game Station. Enjoyed the atmosphere. Enjoyed like talking with friends. Everybody had similar interests. Everyone was into films, games, music. So it was just really good times. And again, I try explaining this to students now, 16, 17-year-olds about, there was game and there was Game Station,
Mm.
and there were a couple of CEXs around, which CEX have they're still going strong, aren't they? And game as well. But yeah, I left in about 2007 and went back working into hotels at that point, and then I decided to go back to university. About I think it was about 25 at that point, and then I've been there ever since. So I've been working in a college as a tutor. Um, Games are kind of like video games. I have a bit of a strange relationship with video games at the moment. I kind of go back to older games, so
Mm.
really enjoy the Dark Souls trilogy. Um, Kind of dip into Quake now and again as well, old Quake, and
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and Doom. But I just struggle like embracing new games. I don't know if it's that thing where you get older and you kind of have your tastes, and getting out of your comfort zones a little bit of a bit more challenging the older you get. But playing competitively as well, online and multiplayer, I feel like an old man. I feel like I'm like 10 miles behind. I tried playing Fortnite, and it's just like I'm like lost, like running around playing it, and I've had to go at the Call of Duty online as well. It's just not my bag anymore. But
Mm.
that's fine. I still enjoy games for what they are. But I'm glad I went through Game Station in that golden period of we, we had PS2 and then PS3 came out at the end of my a bit closer towards the end of my time. Xbox 360, seeing that really blow up and become a real competitor for PlayStation at the time as well. That was really interesting to see. And then I always think about when I go back looking on eBay and see the price of some old games now,
Mm.
especially boxed with instructions, is insane. And I remember the games we had there that used to just get sold for like next to nothing. And oh my, if I at the time,
Nah,
if I would have
yeah.
known, I would have bought
Hundreds
so
of
much
pounds, some of
more.
them.
Yeah,
It's
madness.
it's crazy. You see like £100,
Mm.
£150 for some of these games. It's like, bruh, like what? Ain't these supposed to come down? Like what's going on?
Watching your channels, do you ever dip back into older games like from your childhood?
Um, Occasionally. I mean, I say these days, most of the games I play tend to be older, but I'm talking like
Mm.
maybe they came out 2, 3, 4 years ago, kind of older. I very
Yeah,
rarely
yeah.
play games, on release anymore, just because
Mm.
I'm cheap. you know, um, I mean the truth is that I don't always have a lot of time to play games these days, and I don't like the
Yeah,
idea of spending some 50, 60 pounds for a game that I might play once and then not play it again. Even if I like it, I'm probably not
yeah,
going to play it again for years to come, if ever. So I just kind of
yeah,
decided at some point was like, this is not a good idea. Let me just. I've got so many games I haven't gotten through, or let me
yeah.
just play some of those. That being said, the game that I'm playing the most at the moment is Final Fantasy VII, which is
Right,
what
yeah.
came out in 1997. So not quite my childhood.
Right. So,
I was, I
wow.
was, I was a little bit older when this came out, but
Yeah.
still an old school game, and this would have came like 97. I remember actually when it came out, I never heard of Final Fantasy before that. And I think I remember just seeing some posters for Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation because apparently it was a big deal, and I had no idea what Final Fantasy was. And then I was in, I think it was HMV, or it might have been, I think it was a HMV or game. I don't remember. One of the high street shops. I was in there with my little brother, and he knew about it, and he was like, "Oh, this is cool. I want to get it. I want to get it." So we got it, and got it home, and then I was watching him play, and I was thinking, this looks stupid. Like, what the hell is this? It looks dumb. But yeah, eventually for the longest time I just ignored it, but eventually I did try to play it myself, and I was really getting into it. And this is back in the day, so you had discs. I mean, you'll know this, but the
Yeah,
games came on
yeah,
discs, and this game was so big it came on 3 discs,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it took me forever just to get through the first disc, right? And then I finally got to the second disc, and this was like a big achievement for me that I played that much of a game that I actually got to a second disc. That's a big thing. But then I got a corrupted save file, and
Oh no,
everything was just gone. And
no.
so yeah, right?
Oh, I can feel the
I don't
pain.
know
Yeah.
if it's going to translate well to the younger folk listening, but imagine spending, I don't know what's the equivalent now. Let's say imagine spending, I don't know, 40 plus hours on a game, right? And you got through so many stuff, bosses, whatever else, different parts of the map, traveling here, getting this, collecting that, doing so many stuff, leveling up, and then you still got quite a bit of the game to go, and then your file corrupts. It's the way your heart just sinks, and it's like, yeah, I just couldn't bring myself to try it again, to start again. I just left it
Yeah.
alone, and I did eventually come back to it. I don't remember what happened that time around. I played it for a little while, and I think I just ended up putting it down for. I can't remember what the reason was then, but this time around, I'm like, you know what? I want to play it. It's been bugging me for a while. I'm gonna play it, so I'm sticking through it. I'm pacing myself, but we're in the era of save files being more steady. So
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully that means that I'm not going to get any kind of just going out of focus. Any issues with that. But I think where I am now is still on what would have been the first disc of the game. I don't think I've gotten to that
Right.
second part just yet. But
I remember the
yeah,
first disc
it's a long
ending. I think it ends with the snowboarding. The first disc, if I remember rightly. You know
snowboarding. You
the
know what? Now that you mention
yeah,
that, do you kind of remember snowboarding or some kind
yeah,
of sliding down something in the game? I
yeah,
feel like
yeah.
I feel like I remember it. I'm not sure if I'm mixing memories with other games, but yeah, it's
I
sounding
remember.
vaguely familiar.
Oh, Final Fantasy VII. I'm quite similar. When I remember we got the PlayStation, and then we had these games, and then some of our friends lent us a copy of Final Fantasy VII to try out. And I remember seeing it when you get into the battle, and I was like pressing circle, like come on, come on, and I didn't realize that there's the bar that makes you wait and think about your next move,
Oh
and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the strategy. And I was just like ready to go. Like, come on, we're going to fight here. We're fighting. Shoot him, shoot him. Like, use your sword. Like, I was screaming at the telly, and then but then as you start to adjust to it, you start to see the strategy, don't you? And it
Yeah.
is clever that you're thinking about your next move, aren't you? Thinking about their move. Oh, what a game! What a fantastic game!
It is a pretty cool game. I mean, even playing it, 20 something, 25
Mm.
years later, it's still I still feel like it holds up pretty well. That being said, I mean, it definitely reminded me of some of the more annoying features of the game, like the random battles. Where you're trying
Oh,
to
yeah,
walk across the map. And you just get these
yeah,
random battles every 2 seconds or whatever, and it's like flipping hell, man. I'm just trying to get to. Can I just get there? Can I walk like 10 meters? Can I do that?
yeah.
But then when you try to level up, I don't know if the game knows what you're thinking or whatever, but it's always when you're trying to level up and you're thinking, just like, okay, we get some money, let me get my level up a little bit. You go out into the field. I'm walking for ages and nobody wants to
Yeah,
challenge
yeah,
me. Like, you know what I mean? It's like flipping
yeah.
hell. I don't know if the game just
Wow.
knows, but it's like, well, oh man, the way it just be like you're walking, random battle, turn a corner, random battle, take 5 seconds, random
I
battle.
remember
Oh, jeez.
I remember getting frustrated with it, thinking like, why can't you see these people that you? Because the screen just goes, doesn't it? And you go
Yeah,
straight into it. But I think in later games you could choose, couldn't you, if you're going to go into a battle or
yeah,
not? Like, yeah, I
yeah.
got
You
really
do.
into Final Fantasy 15. That was yeah, like that's a massive generational difference, isn't it, between the two?
I never
Yeah.
played. Well, the last one I played. Well, the only one I guess I say really that I played all the way to the end was Final Fantasy X. That's
Oh
the
yeah,
only
yeah,
one I've
okay.
actually completed. I did. I think it was. played a little bit of Final Fantasy 13 or 14. I don't remember. It was the online one.
Mm.
Played a little bit of
Oh
that,
yeah.
but I didn't really get into it. And
Mm.
some of the newer ones, I just haven't really bothered. They look a bit too much for me, so I haven't
Yeah.
bothered with them.
A couple of years ago, I was off work ill, and I had about a week off work, and I downloaded Final Fantasy VII on the PS4. And are you playing it on the
P-
PS4?
PS4, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
it's
a
on PS4,
remastered
yeah.
version or something, but yeah.
And you can speed it up, can't you? Or you can make,
Yes,
make it
that's
go
right.
three
Yeah,
times the
they made
speed.
a few tweaks. Yeah.
Yeah. And at first I was playing it on the normal speed, but then once you get a taste of that three times the speed, it's so you can't go back. Like you literally cannot go back to how it were before when you like walking so slowly and it's going unbelievably slow, isn't it? And it feels like painfully slow. So
Yeah, like what they've done is so if you're using the analog stick,
yeah,
it would always run when you press the analog stick. It always
yeah,
move in like your running speed. If you
mm,
push down on the analog stick, it would go like three times as fast. It's like whizzing all over the place.
yeah,
But if you
yeah,
use the D pad, um, yeah, you just walk. And yeah, you're right.
yeah.
It is so slow. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, wait a minute. So was this how we were playing it back in like,
That must have been how we
that
played it. Yeah,
that must have been how we were playing. It's like, why is it so slow? It is so yeah. I don't. I'm not. Yeah, you're right. Once you get used to just moving, and it's like, okay, technically it's not how it was made, but
yeah.
mate, it's too slow to go back to. Certainly on a regular basis. Like if you just need to put
No.
some intricate movements, but for the most part, it's just nah. I can't. It's it's
It made
bad.
me quite sad playing it again because it felt really small. And when I was a kid, that game felt like impossibly big. Like
Mm,
it felt like you were running around an actual city. But then when you play it back now as an adult, and you can see like all the gimmicks that they've done, and there's only finite amount of places you can go, and it's
yeah.
not actually that big. It made me feel a bit sad about my childhood. Like my childhood suddenly seemed really small, and now it's it's just such a
Yeah,
small piece of yeah.
yeah, they've
You
got a
got
few tricks in there that I guess won't fly too well these days or be too obvious to spot. But yeah, there's definitely a few tricks they made to kind of long out the game, and I mean
yeah,
it's fun because it works. It's still a decent experience, but
yeah,
yeah, you kind of spot certain things like um like how towns don't change for like 5 years or something. Like with
yeah.
10 stories,
The
it's like really
characters say the
nothing's
same
changed. All
thing.
right, all right.
Yeah,
Nobody seems to age. Telling stories from years ago, and all their clothes for the most part stay exactly the same. It's like, all right, all right.
fair enough.
I guess
Oh,
it's what it is.
you're saying about the corrupt save file. Something
Yeah.
similar happened to me, but I was the one who corrupted it. So
Oof.
if you remember, if you wanted to, what we used to do in school, like if your mate was a little bit further on in a game or did particularly well in a game and they wanted to show you, so instead of going to your mate's house, they could lend you the memory card and then you could copy the save file
Right.
onto
Yeah. Yeah.
your.
Yeah.
You remember that because you had two memory card slots and
Yeah.
yeah. So I think it it was on. It was really stupid. You remember Cool Borders, the snowboarding game?
Cool. I don't think so. No. What is that?
Yeah,
PlayStation? Okay.
yeah, PlayStation. I think they got it said Cool Borders free. There were quite a few of them, and my mate lent me his memory card, and he's like, "Oh, copy across my save file and copy across my replay as well of one of the sickest tricks that I've done, and it'll blow your mind." So I got the memory card home, like put it in, and then put my memory card in port two, and then with I went to copy it across,
Yeah.
and for some insane reason, I'd I'd ended up deleting the deleting the original save file of
Ooh.
of both the replay and the actual cool borders. His save file with all his boards that he'd earned, and then I had to go back in school the next day, like with my head held down, and explain. I'm
Yo.
very, very sorry.
Dude must
I,
have been pissed.
I've deleted your memories. Like, it's so bad.
Oh
Uh,
man.
yeah, he was not happy. So yeah, bad times. But luckily, like, that problem's resolved now. There's no issues like that anymore.
Yeah, because it's just
Yeah,
like, what you call it, like cloud saves now.
yeah,
So like,
cloud.
whether you got PlayStation or um, Xbox do it as well. I'm not sure if Nintendo do actually. I think I don't know.
Oh, dear.
But I know, yeah, definitely PlayStation have their cloud service if you cloud saves if
Yeah.
you pay for the PlayStation Plus, and Xbox do it as well. You know what? We'll say this actually real quick. Speaking of cloud saves, Xbox cloud saves are so much better than PlayStation's. Um,
Right.
they just work so, like, for example, you could play a game on like a cloud based game, like on the streaming service, right?
Hmm.
Play up to a little bit, go to your Xbox, download that game, and just continue in that same place, no issues. It recognizes your username, all that kind of stuff, and your
Yeah.
locates your file, your account, blah blah blah. It just does it. It just works as it should. With PlayStation, if you play on their online cloud service, but then you want to download a game to your PlayStation and start playing there, you've got to like go into your cloud service saves, which is different from your other cloud game saves. Then you got to copy it from that to your
Hmm.
drive, and then copy it over from this to it's long. Like, you just got to keep copying from
Yeah.
here to there, but you can't go from this one from directly. So you have to copy first from this to that, and then download it, and then copy it over for
God.
again. Then you can. It's like, whose idea was that? Like, who's
It
looking at
sounds like
that
a
thinking,
job.
yeah, people want more complicated ways of copying save files. Who thought that was a? Do you know what I mean? And you look at Microsoft, it's just like, it just works. It's just, you
Yeah.
played that, you play, it works. It's just all right. And something that Sony is like, oh yeah, I know what people want, more complicated procedures. Like, no,
Oh my
no,
God, it sounds like an administration task, like you're
right.
in work or something. Yeah.
I mean, my guess is it's probably,
Oh,
and I don't know this for sure, but I'm guess it's probably something to do with like not everything was in place when Sony were doing their things, and maybe it's just like
yeah.
workarounds that they had to create to. But yeah, hopefully that's something they can fix or have a much better solution for, because nah, it's like once you go through that process, you're like, I ain't even gonna bother do that again. It's just long.
Yeah, forget
It's just
that.
long. All right. So with games then, getting into card games, like how did that happen for you?
Oh God, that was pretty strange. Well, not that strange actually. Now I think about it, I was around at a friend's house, and he just incidentally like invited a couple of other buddies round, and then one of the friends had brought some magic cards, and then there's Magic the Gathering, and then my mate was like, "Oh, let's have a game. We get Andy to jump in." So I just had a game, and it kind of stayed in my mind, thinking like, "Oh, pretty good. I quite enjoyed that. That was pretty cool." And then I started dipping my toe into going down the rabbit hole of like buying a deck, and then realizing you could buy boosters, and the uh, the absolutely addictive nature of buying booster packs. No, and then it's been about, I think, when was that? So with Magic, the first set I got into was M15. So it's been 2015, so like 8 years. I've been into Magic the Gathering. Have you played? You've played it. Have you ever
Um,
given it a try?
Not the physical game. I did try a computer version of it some years back, and yeah, I couldn't really get into it. I think it was a bit weird because I've played stuff like Hearthstone, the
Yeah,
Blizzard
yeah.
game, and I got into that for a little while, but for
Mm.
some reason, Magic the Gathering wasn't. I don't know. Maybe it was because I was playing like a crappy computer version, but it wasn't really doing it for me.
Yeah, I think if you sit down with friends, there's like the camaraderie to it as well, and the social element. It's like a board game. When you're playing a board game, and you've got some friends around
Mm.
with you, and some food, some drinks, and making a night of it. And if it's a regular thing, um, that's a big part of it too, and that's a big part that I really enjoy. I like the business side of it as well. The cards go up and down in price, and getting hold of certain cards. can be worth a lot more than other cards, like depending on the print of it or if it's in demand as well. And that's something I quite enjoy. I really enjoy trading the cards and trying to make some money from them. So buying a booster box, so something that it comes with 36 packs, and then if you can work out like where you can get some profit from that if you manage to sell them, or if you want to sell the actual sealed products as well. So that's pretty interesting, and that's something I'm really into. That's something I definitely want to carry across into the shop when we get there, hopefully eventually. But yeah, that's a big part of it. We play very regularly on every Sunday, pretty much. There's about four of us that meet up. We go around to each other's houses, so we have a good couple of games. We've recently got really into Commander, which is a style of playing, and I used to turn my nose up at Commander. I always thought it was a bit of a just for like certain. I don't know. It just had a bit of a strange reputation at first, and I didn't see. It's a bit like going from a console to a PC. Like the Commander seemed like the elite version of playing Magic, so it was a bit like I didn't want to join the elitists. But then once you get a taste of it, like there's no going back. Like, it's really enjoyable. You get a lot out of it. There's really deep strategy to it, and you can spend a lot of time during the week thinking about thinking about what cards to put in, what to cut, what to change up. A lot of it comes in like maths comes into it as well, like thinking about your mana curve. So when you're playing the game of Magic, you have to have a certain mana base to be able to play certain cards. So you need to work out what mana base you need to play those cards and to get those combos like going off. So that's an interesting element to it. It's just I think it's quite a healthy hobby. Maybe not the booster pack so much. I think it's a bit of a dirty secret, really, that buying these booster packs is it's so addictive. And I know people who spend hundreds each month on buying booster packs because it's random what you're going to get in there as the rare card. And so it's quite. I'm always surprised when you see it. It comes up in the news, doesn't it, every so often about young people buying loot crates and
Right,
buying,
yeah.
buying into on that semi gambling online. But it's never about Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic, which is it's basically the physical version of that.
Mm.
And that never gets a second thought. You can go down to Asda, buy your Pokemon cards from there, and it can be treated as the same principle if you're chasing profit, if you're chasing a certain card, you genuinely don't know which one you're going to get. So, but yeah, and I must admit, it is super addictive. You open that pack and you get that card that you really wanted, or a card that is super valuable, and you can either you can either throw that up on Instagram, get a bunch of likes, or you could get that on eBay, get it sold, and then reinvest your money. But yeah, so that it's just part of the game, though. That's a big part of it. But yeah, you should definitely give it a try, Bandit. Go try and find some maybe, or
Yeah.
maybe stay clear.
Let's
Or
see. Let's maybe if I get into it, I might end up spending all my money on this thing and it's coming
mm.
back. I'm just broke trying to find these rare cards. um,
One more pack.
yeah, that is an interesting part of gaming culture.
Mm.
The booster packs or the loot crates, and that kind
Yeah.
of fine line between gambling but not quite gambling, because on one hand, gambling, you put some money up to in a hopes
Yeah.
of winning something, but you could end up with completely nothing, right? But with
Mm.
this, you put your money up because you do want something which you might not get, but you are always going to get something. You're just not
Yeah.
necessarily going
Yeah.
to get the thing you know what I mean. So it's that very fine line between, is it gambling, is it not gambling? But I guess what it really comes down to is that whether you class it as gambling or not, it does share a lot of
Mm.
principles with gambling, and certainly when it comes to, I guess, like the endorphins they call it, or the adrenaline,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
that sort of thing. It's probably like a very similar feeling of anticipation, and are you going to get that
Mm.
thing, and and whether it's disappointment or elation if you do get it. So
Yeah.
But
totally. I think, like I say, I give it a couple of years, or at some point, I think there will be something that where it's looked at and like overtly spoken about, because
mm,
you see that Pokemon is so big. That's what we sell mostly on through Player One, is Pokemon. I went into it hoping to be all about Magic, but
yeah,
it's
Pokemon
cool.
wins.
It's Pokemon.
Pikachu
Oh my
wins.
god, it's Pikachu wins. Yeah, definitely. It's so big, and parents get behind it as well. You know, they're happy buying it for the children, aren't they? But yeah, it has that element of gambling. Totally does. Um, I heard a story about we got some kids across the road, and they're they're really into Pokemon. And one of the kids was telling me that at his school there was one of the kids came in selling counterfeit cards that him and his dad had made.
Okay,
You know,
cheeky
him and his
bastard.
dad, yeah, him and his dad at night, like, you know, like printing out on high quality paper some, like, you know, Charizard or whatever, and like sticking it on like an energy card or something, and then going selling it in the schoolyard for profit, passing it off as real. But and it is a when you really start to think about it, it does become quite an insane concept, because it's a piece of card, isn't it? And you
Mm,
could go online and print them out, and it doesn't cost you a fraction of what it would cost, and it would still play the exact same as well. You'd still play the
yeah.
exact same game. So it is a yeah, it's a strange thing how like values attached to it, you know, and because they do only print finite amount of the cards, and if there are in demand, like certain cards will feature in really popular decks at tournaments, and that's why they'll be highly sought after and that they could exchange hands. But then there are other cards that just basically become, well, you might have seen in the news, like landfill. So Wizards of the West Coast have come under a bit of scrutiny recently about the amount of waste that they produce. It was in the news quite recently, that, so you could check that out. But and yeah, I've got I've got a cardboard box upstairs just full of cards that I will never use. I took one to charity quite recently as well, and then I was thinking about afterwards, like, are you sure that there wasn't like a you know, like a 50 quid card like in there somewhere?
Right.
Um, but yeah, I do like it. I think there's a lot of benefits to it. Like anything, it has its positives and its negatives. So
Yeah.
I'm getting my kids are into getting into sport at the minute, and you can see it there as well. Like it's got the benefit of them running around and, you know, the competition and meeting other people. But then there's the other side of it as well, where there's some like toxic behaviors in there as well, and there's a lot of like jealousy, and there's can be some like outlashes of anger as well, and parental pressure. So I think whatever you go down the route of gaming's notorious for it, isn't it? There's plenty of benefits with gaming, but there's also plenty of downfalls as well.
Yeah.
And you're trying to, you know, become aware of them. So if you are buying way too many cards, just chasing that one card that you want, or
Yeah.
buying them just to get something decent to sell on for money, there's really need to get yourself in check there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's pros and cons to everything, like you said, and I think that's something to consider and be mindful of, no matter what you do. Like, you know, especially when you do kind of get caught up in the good side of it. Sometimes it's very easy to not realize some of the bad stuff that are happening along with that,
Yeah.
you know, and you might find yourself, whether it's in financial trouble or maybe pissing off people, or affecting the people around you, family, friends, and things like that. You
Mm.
could become just very kind of a just an arsehole to be around and not even realizing there's so
Yeah.
many things that can happen when you get too kind of singularly focused on a thing, whether
Yeah.
that's winning something, getting something, you know, because like you kind of get sort of like tunnel visioned to some degree and not realize how you are being.
Mm.
So yeah, definitely I think that's something to be
Yeah.
mindful of with anything you do. And um,
Oh
with
man, addiction freaks me out. It's like, you know, like out of my fears. Like
yeah,
addiction is a real fear that I have. 'Cause I've seen some quite dark stuff with addiction. You know, working in hospitality and seeing drink and drugs
mm,
being used, and they're even in. even in work now, working with young people, you see the ones who've had troubles with substances at a young age and
Mm,
addictions, and even gambling as well. Gambling's wildly popular as well with young people. It's so easy on your phone, isn't it, to get down, get a gambling app, and then get into that
yeah.
endorphin rush and into that circle of just trying to seek out that pleasure, and you get your happiness attached to an uncertain outcome, and it's not healthy, is it? And I think it's something that addiction, no matter who you are, what your status is in life, or whatever you got going on, I think you can be affected by it. So yeah, it's
Mm.
terrifying stuff. That.
Do you or have you had to deal with that? I mean, like whether for yourself or with somebody else being addicted to whether it's Magic the Gathering or other card games. Is that something that's come up in the community that you've had to deal with?
Uh, no, I've not. I've seen unhealthy behaviour, but
Mm.
where people, I've had friends who've spent too much money, and I thought, like, you can see what the thought process is there, that
Yeah.
they buy a sealed product, and then they didn't get that card that they were looking at. Wizards and Pokemon and Hasbro, sorry, who put out Pokemon. They're very clever with amping up the crowd. So they have things like spoilers. So they'll release artwork for cards that are coming out, or new mechanics that are coming out, and it really whips people up into a frenzy, getting them excited and revved up about, this is going to be the hot new card. Like, this is going to affect the meta in this game. The standard's going to go through the roof, so that it increases pre-orders of sealed products. And then you see people. I've got friends who've bought a booster box, and then they've not got that card. I've not got a couple of the cards, the key cards that they wanted. So then they'll dive back in, and start buying single packs again, and you can see, like, by this point you've actually spent enough money to have just bought the card, rather than buying all these sealed products and opening them up.
Mm.
And I think there is pleasure in there's certainly a lot of pleasure that you get out of opening packs, and then, like you say, you've got something to show for your investment as well. Unlike gambling, where gambling on sports, where you kind of have nothing to show for the money that you've invested if you lose. You do have something at the end of the day, something that you can work with. So it depends on your frame of mind as well. If you're going with that frame of mind, like, I'll work with what I've got. So that's usually quite a popular way of playing Magic. There's something called draft. So you play draft usually when there's a new release, or every so often they'll if there's a new set, or a set that's been out, it's still quite new. A gaming shop might do a draft night, so that's when everybody
Mm.
usually spend about £10 to £15, and you get a couple of packs. But you could be the first person to open the pack. You take a card and you pass that on to the next person, and it goes around like that. So that's quite good, because it kind of forces your creativity there as well, and forces you into thinking about, what am I picking here? Picking to win. How am I going to beat my opponent? It's quite fun, um, and it works with that random element as well. But yeah, I think there is a. There's also, you get into that mentality of thinking, like, I'm buying a card game here, so I'm not buying drugs, or I'm not buying alcohol,
Mm.
and or something that's going to damage me. I'm buying, pieces of cardboard,
Yeah.
something that's fun, and that can sometimes, like, lessen your outlook on how you're actually spending money, and your relationship with the game there. Then, but yeah, I think it's like I said, it'll come out, like, some point. I think it's something that will get spoken about more openly, and
Mm.
at some point, I think there's probably some people out there in some quite dire situations who've spent lots of money on these products, chasing something, um, or but it sounds quite strange, doesn't it? Someone getting addicted to opening packs of cards.
Right.
Usually addictions, to something like hardcore, like a drug, an illicit substance, or something like that.
Yeah.
But,
One thing I've learned over the years is that it is absolutely possible to be addicted to anything. And
um,
it's crazy some of the things people get addicted to, like some of the things that you won't even think of. And I think one of the things though is that you could have an addiction, but also be in a position where you can manage it to the point where it's
yeah,
not really a problem, or at least not problem, let's say like financially or anything like that.
Yeah.
And because of that, people might just look at you as, he just likes it a lot, right? And
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
really think too much of it. It is still an addiction. And then, of course, you could
Mm,
have an addiction to something and not have access to it to the point
mm,
where to the average person, it just looks like you might enjoy it once in a while, but you don't really have a problem. When deep
mm,
down, mentally, you are still addicted. So it's just one of these things where on the outside, looking in, you can't always tell if somebody has a problem
mm,
or not because how it looks to
totally.
you and what what they're doing may be completely different to what we typically associate addiction with,
Mm.
where it's a person who is like maybe jonesing all the time and every moment he gets it,
Yeah.
that's kind of how we, and of course that happens, but that's generally what we think of when we think of being addicted to something. But it can exist in so many different ways and manifest itself in so many different ways that you might look at someone and think they're totally fine, but deep down they got a
Yeah.
problem. You just don't see it on the surface.
Yeah. We did you see that in the news about TikTok being limited for under? Is it? I'm sorry, paraphrasing. I should have done my research beforehand, but I saw in the news quite recently about TikTok addressing uh, user time limits. So it's
Yeah, I
limiting the
mean,
amount.
I didn't see it on the news, but I did see something on it. I think it flashed up on the app at one time when I was on it
Mm,
about limiting the time. I didn't really read much into it though because I'm not on TikTok a lot, so it just kind of came up and I was like, oh, all right, and then moved on to it. But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea certainly to have things that help people regulate their screen time. To be honest, I feel like a lot of apps should probably do something similar
Mm.
because I find myself sometimes scrolling a little bit too much, and it's like, ah, shit, let me put this
I
down.
do,
You know?
yeah. I'm so bad for it on my phone and that on a Monday morning when the iPhone says like your screen time if it was up or if it was down based on the previous week.
Mm,
But working with young people, we used to do we did like a workshop where we got all the students to look at the screen time and then just try to assess it. Like, how much screen time have you got? What could you do with that time? When are you using your phone the most? What are you using it for? Because we really struggle at college with students concentrate levels of concentration. And
yeah.
as soon as I see it when I've got a group of 30 students, and as soon as you say something that's like, that they're not finding that interesting, or they're starting to switch off, it's just immediately they go to the phones, and the
Mm,
phone comes out, and they're
yeah.
getting like that perk up, like you say, of like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah, and they're getting that endorphin hit, aren't they? And they're straight back to it. But then the brains have got to change gear when you call them out on it, and you're like, come back on, we're doing a task now, and then but that's in the classroom, so you can only imagine what it'd be like at home when they're trying to focus on a piece of work, or if they've got some homework or something they've got to do, and then they're constantly like, oh, just get the phone out, have a quick look, right? A
Yeah.
couple will go back to it, and you can see it at the cinema when you go to the cinema now.
Mm,
So many young people, and as soon as they're getting a bit bored or a bit disengaged with whatever that they're looking at, it's the phone comes
yeah.
out, doesn't
Switch
it?
the phone.
Immediately comes out. And that's same again. I think that'll be something in a couple of years, that we have a serious look at and serious look
Yeah.
at what effects is it having on our brains? Either that or humans will like like evolve to be completely fine with it and multitask, and that could be the that could be the result of splitting our
Mm.
attention with the phone all the time. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so I think it's gonna have to come to that or something similar. I mean, because there's so much you can do, with your phone now. Phone is not
yeah.
just a phone, right? It hasn't been just a phone for the longest time. It's
Mm,
access to the internet. It's where you could order things, check things, find out things, all kinds of stuff. Keep
mm,
up, send messages, send emails, all sorts of things you could do in your phone now. So, having a phone is, I don't know, I don't want to say necessity, but it's certainly
yeah,
near
yeah.
enough to a necessity in, say, a modern
Mm,
Western society. So, right, or any society, not just Western, but any kind of society where you do
yeah.
so much with it. So, on one hand, you don't want to ban phones, right? And of course,
No,
some people
no.
are going to need to use their phones more than other people's. That's going to be a thing. But then at the same
Mm,
time, so how? for when you are using it. Like for example, I know for myself where I might be like, oh, let me check something real quick. Go on my phone, checking something, and then that leads me to open up this app, then that app, and that app, and then I'm like
Yeah,
on Instagram scrolling. I'm like 10 minutes later, go, what was I supposed to be doing again? you know. So yeah, I feel like there definitely has to be some kind of conversation, or I guess in
yeah,
schools, maybe some kind of like course or guidelines into navigating
yeah,
a world through social media, and especially when it comes to things like there's a little bit off what we're talking about, but in the same sort of field of people seeking validation through likes and
yeah.
that whole thing as well. So I feel like social media clearly is here to stay, certainly for the foreseeable future. And if that's the case, fine. But then, yeah, I guess we need to figure out how people coming into this world as young adults, as adults, and grown adults start to navigate this world and figure things out and use it in a more productive or at least healthier way.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I totally know where you're coming from, and I think it will be something where it's taught to use it responsibly or become aware of your relationship with
Mm,
with your phone, with technology, and that about addiction. It's I don't know if it's moving into a realm like I don't even know if there's a word for it where it's not addiction. It's just like a necessity, where it's just something you do, like I don't know. I think it's a
mm,
strange place we're in, and still early days yet, really, with the smartphone. Um, yeah, yeah. So I remember, like back at Game Station, I remember there was a noticeable drop when because I still had friends there at this point, but in 2010, 2011, and it was about a couple of months before Game Station went out of business, and it and a lot of it was attributed to very simple games. Like in the early 2010s, the iPhone was starting to take off, so
mm,
apps were taking off and gaming, and then also on your PC, your laptops, and tablets creeping in at that point as well. So things like Farmville, and that was eating up a lot of the core audience who were going out buying video games. So that was a big part of why GameStation suffered massively because if you remember, GameStation always had 1 foot firmly in pre-owned and 1 foot firmly in new games as well.
mm,
So and they kind of like tried to do both really well, whereas Game would really focus on new products and selling new games. And they still had the pre-owned, but it wasn't pushed as much. And
yeah,
then CEX were, CEX were both feet firmly in pre-owned games,
yeah.
exclusively pre-owned games. And I think that's a couple of things thrown into the mix with GameStation about why it fell apart and why it fell down. But yeah, so but I have some good memories at old Game Station, and I'd love to see a Game Station again, but it just wouldn't survive on the high street now. There's no
Mm,
way
yeah.
you'd
I
get
just feel
something
like
like that.
the time of the high street shop, I guess it's not strictly speaking over, but it's certainly changed so much,
Mm,
because like, yeah, I mean, back then, say like mid to late 90s, early 2000s is, at least for me, and I'm sure other people are going to say different, but for me, that's kind of like my peak sort of
yeah,
high street, gaming, music, that's kind of peak for me because like I can remember going to like, HMV and,
yeah,
going through like the martial arts DVD section and just picking out a
yes,
bunch of cheap movies that you've never heard of and going home and buying them, or going to game and looking through some of the games that they had there and taking them home, or game station sometimes. But I don't go game station a lot, but I did go there sometimes. There was one maybe a few miles from where I lived, so I went there maybe a couple of times. CAX I probably didn't go to a lot as well, maybe a little bit later on. But yeah, it was like, you go to these different shops and you kind of
yeah,
looking through like the shelves and you checking stuff out, you seeing what they got, and of course that happens. I mean, people can still go to a shop who can still do that. But I just feel like the attitudes has changed so much because, you can buy things online now, and that's more of a thing where you can
Yeah.
just go to Amazon or whatever and pick it out, and it comes to you the next day or whatever it is. And it feels to me like the only time I go to the shops if I'm if I'm buying food or clothes, and
Yeah.
that's pretty much it. It's like it's rare I go, and then I go to places where just to like kind of look and sift through like the shelves and and see what they have and just buy something you never heard of, and I guess for me, I don't want to say it's past, but it does feel like that period was a time for it,
Yeah.
and maybe younger people feel differently about things going on now. Maybe older people might feel that way about the 60s or whatever. But for me, I feel like that kind of mid 90s to say probably about 2005, 6-ish, that for me is that peak period for that sort of thing,
Yeah.
So yeah.
I know. I was saying like a couple of shops. I still love HMV now. I love going in, having a look. I like how they're still surviving, and I think
Mm.
they're. I wouldn't say thriving, but
Well,
they're, yeah,
they're getting by. They're getting
they're
by.
not like off the ropes yet, but it's crowds like the vinyl heads at the moment are starting to
Mm.
gravitate towards there, and it's introducing a lot of young people getting into vinyl thanks to
Yeah.
HMV. You're into your vinyl,
A little
aren't
bit,
you?
yeah, a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
bit. It's kind of crazy because like I started getting into vinyl maybe a couple of years back just through complete accident, and these days I would say that when I buy vinyl, a lot of it is, I mean, I can listen to music on like the streaming apps, and that's the most convenient way to do it. But I find like, especially when it comes to independent artists, like it's a cool way to support
Yeah.
independent artists by buying vinyl if they have it. But not all independent artists release their stuff on vinyl, so some
Mm.
maybe only a few that do. But when they do, then yeah, I do look to get it and just have something. And even some of the more established artists I might look at as well. But that'd be more stuff where it's an album that I really really like,
Yeah.
and then I might try and look to get it on vinyl. But yeah, I've got a small collection.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit of a. I don't want to say vinyl ahead. I'm not sure I'm quite
Yeah.
there yet, but I've got a small little vinyl collection. Yeah.
Oh, cool, cool. Why do you think? I always wondered this about vinyl, because I'm sort of getting into vinyl. I like a bit of it, but it's expensive for one thing.
Mm,
And I think if you've got a very decent setup, I think that helps as well, doesn't it? If you've got a really good quality pair of headphones or a really decent amp and some speakers, very nice turntable. I suppose it can be a piece of furniture, can't it? It's like a
mm.
bit of a statement piece in your home. Um, but I'm just wondering, like, why why would someone spend £30 on a vinyl now? And I suppose it comes back to what you were saying about supporting. Um, but what when you could just get it, you could get basically infinite music on a Spotify subscription.
Yeah.
I was
And
just wondering, that's so, the competition is massive, and why would still people go towards vinyl?
I mean, I mean, for me, it's like I rarely listen to vinyl pieces that I buy. So my vinyl actual player is it was a basic vinyl player. I got for like 50 quid. So the only stuff I listen to it are maybe stuff that are already opened. I've only that's the only stuff that I've listened to on it. Just stuff that's
Yeah,
already come with it, already opened. If I'm buying something and it's sealed, it's staying sealed, Or
yeah,
to
yeah,
be fair, maybe once or twice I've opened it, but for the most part, it stays sealed. So yeah, for me, it's buying it more as a way of supporting artists, and I do like the fact that it's like an art piece as well, where you have like a
yeah,
vinyl, sort of a 12-inch vinyl disc. In terms of the sounds, though, like I mean, there is definitely something about the way vinyl sounds that is quite appealing. Even though it's not as clean as, of course, the more digital audio. If you go in your Spotify's or whatever, that's gonna be much, much clearer audio, much, much higher quality. Especially, if you've got like a decent pair of headphones or speakers, it's gonna sound amazing.
mm,
But as close to the original voice as you possibly can get, right? Whereas with vinyl, it's gonna pick up like maybe like the sound of the air, or that's gonna might show a bit more, or where it's like the fuzz because it's been, maybe it's an older disc and some of the dust that's collected on it. It's just things that impurities, I guess you could call it, that you hear, and yeah, it means that it doesn't sound as good, but also it feels like there's just something that feels more authentic about it, and I'm not sure I can say exactly what that is, but certainly when I've
Yeah.
listened to, like, because some of the pieces that I found, I used to work at a place where you're gonna go and clear it out. These old, not old, but just places where people have lived and you're getting ready for new tenants. So that's how I kind of got into it. 'Cause I ended up finding all these old pieces of vinyl. And so I've listened to stuff from like maybe like the 50s, and you play it on this vinyl player spinning around. And it's like, and then
Yeah.
Doris Day comes singing along on it, and it just sounds like, I don't know, just there's an authenticity that I can't really explain. I guess it's like you kind of have to hear it to know what I mean.
Yeah.
But there's just something about that crackly sound, that sound that it sometimes makes, that it just makes it more of an experience to listen to.
Mm.
That you can just kind of sit down and just let it play and just like
Yeah.
enjoy the sound, the music, and then when I'm in my car or whatever, then I put the YouTube Music app on and just
Yeah.
listen to that way. And
Cool. I've got I've got to ask you, Bandit. Hold on. Your job. You were cleaning out houses.
Okay,
Is that right?
so
Yeah.
the job title was mobile caretaker, and
Right.
what we would do is, so when people would, it was mostly council. I think it was mostly council houses anyway. I'm not entirely sure exact business model, but when people lived in a place for a while and for whatever reason they
Yeah.
move out, go somewhere else, there's a period of time that they have to take all their belongings with them, and after that, whatever's left in the house needs to be chucked out. So we would
Right.
go into those houses, clear out all like old furniture or anything else that's been left behind. They'll go to like a recycle yard, and then sometimes we might come back and actually like clean it up and that sort of thing as well.
Mm.
But they mostly have like electricians and plumbers and to fix things and that sort of thing to get it ready for whoever's going to take over that place. So yeah, my job was mostly clearing stuff out. It was me and this other guy, and issues, we didn't get along, and
Yeah.
but I won't get into that part of it. But yeah, the job itself was fine, and especially when I started finding like some old vinyl pieces, um,
Yeah.
that like I said, they were going to get thrown out. So it's like, all right, well, if you're going to get chucked out anyway, nobody wants this.
Wow.
I'll keep a few. And my initial thought was, I'm going to sell them on eBay. Maybe they're worth something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe they were. I don't know. I never really looked up in the end because I got them home and I was kind of like, I haven't listened to a vinyl piece since I was a kid. When my dad used to have a
Mm.
record player, right? And so I thought, let me just check them out for a little while. So I just went online and got a cheap vinyl player and started listening to it. I was like, what? I don't think I want to sell these anymore. Actually, I think I want to keep these actually. And then I found a few more pieces, but yeah, I ended up not staying at that place very long. So moved on, and then everything else is just stuff that I've bought, whether from shops or online, or like I said, when people like independent artists are releasing stuff, and they'll sometimes have a limited vinyl run, and I'll try and get that as well. And
Yeah.
so yeah,
Cool.
but I did find a decent
Oh,
amount before I left. Though I think I found at least, I didn't count them, but probably at least 50, 60 pieces of vinyl, I think,
yeah.
um,
Wow.
that I
Wow.
found. Like, they're just in boxes, and you know, yeah, some of them were older pieces, some of them were like the small 7-inch pieces, like the singles. In fact, I think all of them were older pieces. So like, yeah, Doris Day was amongst there,
Yeah.
Elvis Presley, Whitney Houston,
Yeah.
mate, loads of stuff. But I can't even remember a lot of them right now. But yeah, so many. Engelbert Humperdinck, like, so it's like stuff from like
Right.
80s, 70s, mostly that kind of era. But yeah, a few from like the 50s, I found as well. So
Oh, amazing. I went into we dip in charity shops every now and again.
hello, okay.
No,
Uh,
is it gone off?
oh, like, we're back now. We're back.
Oh
I think
no,
we're
are we
back.
back on? Oh,
Okay,
good.
so yeah, you said so
Yeah,
at dipping into charity shops.
Yeah, going into charity shops, and they'd always have a vinyl section. So having a quick look through, and one day I found there was a Muppet Show soundtrack, so I picked that up, and that was all right. And then another time I went in, they had Big Trouble in Little China, the soundtrack.
Oh man, classic movie.
So
Yeah, yeah.
oh, love John Carpenter. Like what a find! Like took that
Mm.
home and had a good listen to that. Yeah. Oh my god, I'm just thinking about your job. It sounds like the start of a horror film or something. You're like clearing out a house and there's like a dead
I
body
mean, to
there or
be fair, there
something.
was definitely. Oh, there's some nasty houses out there. I can't lie. There's some nasty houses out there. Like, I mean, most of the places were, not too bad. But yeah, there was
Yeah.
some nasty houses. There was some. I'm sure they just thought to themselves, you know what? We're leaving it anyway. Let someone else deal with it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Oh
sure that's
my
what they
god.
thought.
Oh
You got these places, and it was just like, yo, what the like things just like all over the place and you don't want to touch anything because it's like I'm sure there's diseases on
oh
that thing.
wow.
It's like, nah, let me get some gloves or something. You know what I mean? Just like yeah, there's some nasty places out there, but it's like
Wow.
I hope you don't live like this. I hope this was just you taking a piss because you
Yeah.
knew someone else was gonna clean it up. I hope you're not actually living like this. Like it's just
Wow.
disgusting.
I'm glad you found that vinyl. That was like
Mm.
it's like the universe repaying you, like karma. It's
Oh, for
coming back,
sure.
like trying to
For
reward
sure.
you, reward you
Yeah.
for your efforts.
Yeah, the job itself
Wow.
weren't bad. I mean, a job's a job, right?
Mm,
But yeah, there definitely some other issues. But yeah,
mm,
it led me to vinyl, so grateful for that at
mm.
least.
That was a good find. I remember when I worked in hotels and sometimes going into, if someone hadn't checked out yet, and you'd have to go around this is when I worked on reception. You'd have to go around and you'd have a list of rooms that they haven't checked out, so potentially they could have left without coming to reception and dropping the key off. And you go and knock on the door, and you'd wait a minute, you wouldn't hear anything. So then you get your master key out, open the door, and the room would just be trashed. They'd like
Mm,
absolutely they'd stay over one
mm,
night and just absolutely ruin. I don't know how it was possible to spend that much time and effort in like ruining a hotel room.
right.
Used to find loads of grim stuff. Yeah, some
Yeah.
people like having
Body
having a wild
fluids, I'm
night out.
guessing.
Yeah, yeah, some very very grim things. And then oh yeah, just how people would, I don't know, they come away for a weekend in Manchester and then, they probably had a very stressful week and wanted to get the money's worth, so they'll definitely have like a big party and, push the boat out a little bit too much with
Yes.
illicit substances. Yeah, it's just so grim. I'd never leave a hotel room. I don't know if you're like this, when you're staying over a hotel. I always make sure, like, when I leave, I try and leave the place like
Oh,
as clean.
yeah,
I'll make
yeah,
the bed. Oh, yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Even right. You know what I mean?
As if, as if they're going to
Try and
write a
do
report
the
on me or
corners as well.
something.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Put the towels back neatly.
I remember one place I stayed at. I can't remember where now, but I remember like I was in the room where the cleaning people were coming around, and they're just sort of going around stuff, and they came to my room, and she was about to clean it while I was there, and I was like,
Mm,
yeah, don't even worry about it, like just leave it. It's like,
mm.
I'll do that. You can if you want to watch TV for a little bit, it's all good, mate. It's just like I don't mind. 'Cause I don't mind. And I mean, the room weren't messy. It was like,
Yeah.
I think at that time it was maybe like the bed wasn't made or something, but like it
Mm.
wasn't like a trash. So yeah, I was like, look, you don't even worry about it. I can do that. If you want to just chill for a little bit, it's cool, and and she was like, no, 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 I'm gonna do this, and then she did it, and she left, and I was like, all right. Well.
Yeah. What are you going to say? Like, you get the rubber gloves out and you're like, no, no, I insist. And you're like, right, pass me that scrubber. Like, cleaning a deep clean.
I'm probably not too far away from offering that, but yeah, not just yet, not just yet. All right. So I want to ask you about a little something, something. Because you mentioned to me that you've gotten into spoken word poetry, and I ain't know if you know this, but I spent quite a bit of time on the London poetry circuit.
Right,
Um,
right.
it's
That's
been a
cool.
while now. I think probably coming up to 7, 8 years, maybe 10 years since I haven't been as
Yeah.
active on the circuit. But yeah, for a good long while, I was on the London poetry circuit doing like gigs, doing open mics, doing
Yeah.
slams, poetry slams. I got the opportunity to perform in different cities. So yeah, I have quite a bit of an interest in poetry and
Oh,
spoken word. Um, so
that's brilliant. I didn't know that, mate. I thought I was a fan. I didn't I didn't realize. I'm so sorry about that. Cool.
um, so what got you into poetry? From one geek to another geek. I think that could be an interesting a story.
So I went to a couple of friends started. It's like friends of friends. They put on this poetry event, and it was called Freestyle Fictionary. It was down in Manchester, and this is would be 2012 or quite a while ago. And then just going seeing that, just seeing it live in person, because usually I think poetry and just think it's, poetry, poetry started and ended with the GCSE,
Yeah,
anthology,
yeah.
and then yeah, I didn't think about it for years, but then seeing it live in person, um, just a not I wouldn't say mind blowing, but I just started to think, wow, like really deep, profoundly impressed by um, particularly spoken word, where somebody wouldn't have well a phone in front of them or a sheet of paper. It'd be something that they practiced and rehearsed and spent some time with, and
Mm,
then you could see in the performance there was like a theatric like some theatrics to it. It wasn't over the top, but it really, really like spoke, like came from the soul and came from like lived life experience, and I found that really impressive. And then also a part of that freestyle fictionary, it was a bit like a cabaret style, so they had word games as well, so to do some word play. Some of the lads were into freestyling, so just off the top of the heads, and then yeah, it just sort of grew from there, and I'd toy about with it. And then it was only about a year ago. This cafe that I go in and work, they put out a call for open mic, and I'd written a few pieces, and then just replied to them on Instagram and say, "Oh, I'm up for it," and they were really accommodating. They're called Free Guys. You can find them. They're a Portuguese cafe based in Bolton, and but they host a poetry event called Nata, and so I performed at Nata twice, and I've been there a couple of times to watch the event. It's fantastic, and yeah, it's just grown from there really. And then it's such a nice. I hope you've had a, a positive experience in the scene, but oh,
no. It was good. It was no, it was mostly good. It was mostly good. It was
yeah,
mostly good. Few, yeah. I mean, of course, like we say, pros and cons to everything, but yeah, it was mostly good.
yeah. I really like the scene up here that I've seen so far. Everybody's really accommodating. It seems like a bit of a. It's nice being part of it. It's quite self-contained, so often at the events, the audience is they're also either going on to the open mic that night, or they might have done it a couple of at the
Mm,
previous event. So you kind of have an audience of like heavily invested people, and it's always really supportive as well. Like I did an event a couple of weeks ago called Mind Over Matter, and it was at the Hip Hop Chip Shop, which is in Manchester. If you ever go, if you ever come up to
that
Manchester
sounds
again,
a cool
Bandit,
name though. Hip hop
yeah,
tip
I,
shop. I
oh,
can't lie.
it's
That
so
sounds like
good.
such a cool name.
It was fantastic, pal. Like, yeah, yeah, over there, and I thought I were going on at 7, but it turned out I was going on at about 10:30 at night, and I was so tired when it came to it because I've been at work all day. I got up at 6, and I, I did the event, but I really weren't in the headspace that I wanted to be, and I don't think I nailed it. But everybody's really positive, and they're all thanks for coming out, thanks for sharing, and they're
Mm,
interested, and everyone's got questions, and yeah, so that's my experience so far. I've met some lovely people, made some really nice friends, and I hopefully keep it going, keep it as an interest. How did you get into it?
Um, so for me, it was again, like it's like most things just happen through accident.
Mm.
um,
Yeah.
I remember actually, I was online and I was looking up an actress, Lisa Ray, who was in a TV show at the time called All of Us. It was like the Will Smith produced sitcom. And so I was looking up, I was trying to find stuff about actress Lisa Ray, and I
Mm.
found this website that was, sort of fan, I guess a fan website that's dedicated to her. So,
Mm.
I'm looking through the website, and along the bottom there had this embedded video, and it just said
All
deaf
right.
poetry. Um,
Really cool.
and I was like, sorry, you said deaf poet, excuse me, she said deaf poet.
Yeah.
Um, and I was kind of like, what's a deaf poet? I mean, like a poet that's like deaf, can't hear. So I was kind of intrigued. I mean, it meant deaf as in DEF because Deaf Poetry Jam. So I
All
kind
right.
of
Def Jam.
found out
Right.
later
Right.
on. But at the time, I was thinking deaf poet, like so. I clicked on it, and it was a poem, a spoken word piece by a Philadelphia-based artist called Black Ice, and I remember just like watching it and thinking it was so amazing and so incredible. So one of the first things I did was go to YouTube directly and start searching more about Black
Mm.
Ice, and that's where I found out more about the Deaf Poetry Jam that happened. It was a televised show in America back in the day, and then I found more poets through that. I was watching so many, and I just felt really inspired to start writing
Mm.
after that. So I did. I started writing some stuff down, and I looked online to find places we could perform. I went to this place in Old Street. It's no longer there, which is a shame. But it was the first place I performed. I went there and I did my piece. It was an open mic night, and like you say, the guys there were like really supportive. And like one of the guys who organized the event, he came up to me. He was like, it's this other place that I'm about to perform at. Why don't you come to that? So you meeting more people, and they let you know about this event and that event, and before you know it, you're just going around. You meeting
Yeah.
new people, and you feeling inspired by them, and you learn about this, and then there's workshops going on, and yeah, it just became a massive part of my life for probably
Brilliant.
about 10 years or so. Um,
Wow.
where I was just going to different events and performing, like I say, open mics, slams, did a few features. I actually recorded a spoken word album, which is still available on
Wow. Right.
Bandcamp. So,
Oh
a little bit of
yeah.
a plug
Yeah.
there, a little bit of a plug. um,
I'll
and
check it out. I'll check that out. That
oh
sounds
yeah,
great.
please do,
Yeah.
please do. It's what's it called? Oh, what did I call it? It's called End of Level Boss.
Right.
End of
All
Level
right.
Boss by BH the Uncivilized.
All right.
um, but yeah,
Cool.
that is still available. You could listen to it. You could download it for free. It's all good. Um, but yeah, I had a great time. Like I say, there are pros and cons to everything, and not everybody's nice, and and you definitely do meet some arseholes along the way, which is to be expected, I guess. But I guess what kind of led to me stepping back was just was more personal in terms of like feeling more and more like this just wasn't for me. Like the scene just wasn't for me. There was a period of time where I was really trying to push the poetry as to have a career in it, and it just felt more exhausting than anything,
Yeah.
And I still like poetry. I still maybe don't write as much as I used to, but I still kind of dibble and dabble. Um, and every now and then I still might put something out on my YouTube or Insta or whatever. So it's still and I do still watch a lot of the poetry. Well, maybe not a lot, but I still watch their poetry videos. Button Poetry are doing really cool things. If anybody looking for recommendations, so yeah, it's still and I feel like for me, and perhaps you might feel something similar, but poetry, even though I'm not doing it as much, I feel like it's in a way kind of led me to doing things like this podcast or doing
Yeah.
the YouTube channel, because one of the things I found along the ways is my biggest passion is creativity, and finding ways to be creative and expressive. And poetry was that way for a while. And now I'm looking at other ways. And I've done a little bit of stand up comedy, and I've done
I've seen that.
writing, and in fact, I probably started out with writing like way back in the day, but didn't really go nowhere, go to anywhere with it. But it's kind of like opened me up to this idea of finding yourself, which as corny as that sounds, but when you're writing, you're really looking inwards a lot of the time. Well, pretty much all the time, and you're really kind
Yeah.
of in your own headspace because you're trying to be, you're trying to pour yourself out
Mm.
onto the page. So you spend a lot of time just like, what do I think? What do I believe? How do I want to express that? And it's really is a selfish thing, right? But it's a good kind of selfish because you're figuring out who you are and what's important to you, and where you draw the line on certain things and where you're willing to budge on other things, and all
Mm.
this stuff just kind of happens kind of organically as you become more and more into the creative space. So yeah, I mean, I feel like poetry has given me a lot, even if though I'm not in that world as much as I used to be. It's given me a lot in terms of who I was and who I've become.
Wow, I had no idea. You were into it for so long. 10 years, about 10 years.
Yeah, I
You
think
were creating.
about 10 years on the circuit. Yeah,
Wow,
maybe not
wow.
exactly, but either a little bit less or maybe a little bit more. I'm not sure. 'Cause
Yeah,
I can't remember exactly when I started and exactly, and there was kind of a period where I was kind of in and out, in and out. So
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, these days it's definitely more out than in. So
And did the stand up come after the poetry, or did it sort of coincide like
the
at the same
stand up
time?
came afterwards because how that came about was, like I said, I was doing poetry and I was kind of after I wasn't as doing much, so I was just kind of figuring out that I like to tell. I mean, I knew that I like to tell jokes. That's just kind of who I am
Yeah,
over a long
yeah,
time. And so my YouTube channel at the time was just me doing like these sketches. And then it was a friend of mine that kind of suggested that I should do shows. And she didn't specify stand up, but she just said I should do shows. And that kind of translates in my mind to stand up, which I've kind of thought about before, but not in any really serious way. So I was like, okay, try that. So yeah,
yeah.
I kind of tried it for a while, and I enjoyed it. It was cool. It's definitely like, in fact, let me tell you the biggest lesson I learned during stand up actually. Um, when you stand out in front of the crowd, like it's the same for poetry really, but I'll say I learned this more when I was doing stand up. But when you stand out in front of a crowd, they're making so many assumptions about you internally.
Mm.
Like they've assumed what type of person you are, what you eat for breakfast, whether you believe this thing, whether you believe that thing. They're making so many subconscious assumptions about you, right? And what helps when you're doing stand up, especially, and that's more and poetry as well, but I think more so in stand up, is to have a good understanding of how people perceive you, so you can use that
Mm.
to get the laugh, to use that to your advantage. You could, because a lot of humor comes from misdirection, and if you're
Yeah.
completely oblivious to how people view you, then that's going to be difficult to do. And also when it comes to things like the more sensitive jokes, right? If you have
Mm.
no idea of how people perceive you, you might have a joke that's really really funny, but you're trying to tell it in a way that they're not willing to receive it from you, and then you
Mm.
just completely messed it up, and all you get is booze and, and tackled, and so yeah, finding out or being aware of how people perceive you, and not necessarily being that thing, but just using it to your advantage so you can tell your story to them in the best way they can receive it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
What?
you definitely learn a few things do it being on stage.
I appreciate the wisdom. Yeah, you got some
So
stories
good.
to tell. Do you know what did you find more nerve-wracking? It was about the poetry or the stand-up? Because I was thinking then you saying about being honest with the crowd with poetry, expressing exactly who you are in like quite a selfish way, like you're saying. But then is that more nerve-wracking than going out and just being like, right, I'm going to make you laugh? Okay,
um I don't know if it's more or less. Like it's probably the same, but in different ways. Because with poetry, yeah, you're being very vulnerable. At times. I mean, of course you could do the poetry where it's a bit safer. You could do the poetry where the crowd is into this sort of thing. You just do that, and that's cool too. But you're being a bit safer, and that's less you're nerve wracking. But yeah, if you doing like deep poetry, it's like really vulnerable. You have no idea how people are going to perceive it, and ultimately perceive you and what they might think of you. Because you could be talking about really dark parts of yourself and your life and things that don't necessarily paint you in a good way. That it doesn't paint you in a good way, but it's a part of who you are, and you're trying to be open about it. And what's it gonna make people think of you? Are they still gonna like you? And all this sort of stuff. So there's that side of it. But then with stand up, I guess you still being vulnerable, but in just a different way. Your vulnerability is somewhat masked a little bit because you are telling jokes, and you are trying to make people laugh. But then it's like very quickly if you succeeded in that. Because you can tell a joke and it can be just silence.
Oh,
And
how
that's
did-
such an awkward feeling, and before your name gets called, I feel like, in fact, somebody told me this once years ago, around about the time I started doing poetry. Just some guy, I don't even remember who it was, but he just said to me, "The day you stop getting nervous is the day you quit." And
right,
that's
right.
something that I've
Oh,
remembered all these years because I
mm,
really think that's true. I feel like the moment you stop getting nervous is a moment you have to ask yourself, do I care about this, or am I back,
yeah.
or am I just getting too comfortable? Am I not challenging myself? You know, am I about to say something that I already know everybody's gonna like? You know, am I really doing this to the best of my ability? If you're not feeling, because like I said, I did poetry for years, and pretty much every time, you can be fine because you learn to deal with your nerves, but right when your name gets called out, and it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
and then you go on stage and you just kind of like you feel it all the whole way through, but you
Mm,
just learn to deal with it. But yeah, the moment that goes away, yeah, you really have to ask yourself, am I doing something that I still care about? Am I
yeah.
really challenging myself, or am I just playing it safe? So yeah. The
So,
day you
sorry
stop
to ask
getting
you
nervous
to.
is the day you quit. Well, maybe not quit, but
I
certainly
can,
think about what
yeah.
you're doing. Maybe quit there has to come
Yeah.
eventually, but at least think about what you're doing.
Imagine if you applied that principle to your job. Like I go into work tomorrow morning and I'm like, I feel nothing. I feel no nerves about walking into the office.
Yeah.
And then you're like, right, I'll quit. Yeah,
Well, I mean, to
probably
be
have some
fair,
serious room to put into.
I
Yeah.
mean, that might not be such bad advice when it comes to regular jobs. Just quit. Just
Yeah,
quit.
just call it a day.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for bringing up like painful memories.
Oh no,
What,
it's all
what does
good. I
it?
mean,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's
What did
uh,
it feel like when the crowd just doesn't respond? Comedy
um,
wise.
it's definitely like the first time it happens, it's like shit, because like
Yeah.
you practice your jokes when you're at home and all that kind of stuff. And you could very quickly forget everything you practiced when a
Oh,
joke doesn't hit. And you're just like, do I say something? Do I acknowledge this? Do I move on? And by the time that's all going through your head. And by the time you're trying to figure out what you're trying to do, it's like, wait, what was my jokes again? Like, what was I trying to say?
oh,
There's like, oh, shit, what? And you just kind of stand there for a minute. And it's like, you just kind of, well, at least for me, it was just kind of default to some joke that I told that kind of got memorized. Like, okay, let me just say that. And then it wasn't part of the set initially, but it's something I can remember right now. And,
yeah.
yeah, but
Oh
it's an
man.
experience, and I think it's
Yeah.
it's an important experience, I guess, in life. Sometimes you're gonna say stuff that doesn't go so well over the crowd. Sometimes you're gonna
Yeah.
get rejected, so to speak, and
Hmm.
it's just kind of a part of how we navigate through life, and it's just learning to deal with these things and hopefully coming back next time and learning something from that.
Have you? Have you stopped the stand-up now? Is it completely
Um,
stopped?
I mean, I haven't done it for a while. I feel like I haven't quit. I'm not sure I've even with poetry. I don't feel like I've quit. Like it's more
Mm,
like I just haven't done it for a while. So
yeah.
like, I mean, I guess it's in fairness, it's not where my focus is. Um, but I do kind of feel like, yeah, at some point, I might turn up at an open mic and
Yeah,
see if
yeah.
I can still got it or still
Still
don't got
got
it, whichever way, right? But yeah, it's
Oh,
not, it's not,
cool.
it's not, it's not where my focus is. But it's not something that I feel like
Mm.
I'm done with either. I feel like I might still have a few gags in the bag here and there. We'll see, we'll
Yeah,
see.
cool, cool.
How about yourself? Do you see poetry as like more of a career or of a hobby, a little bit of both? Like how do you see it right now?
Definitely a hobby, and yeah, I want to keep going with it. I've seen a couple of people I've only just sort of met on the scene who only been in it for about a year. I mean, you say like career. I think the next step, once you get a decent collection, is to be a headliner.
Mm,
So I know a couple of lads and girls who've been headline acts, and then they've. I don't know how much money they're being paid. I certainly don't think they've quit their day jobs,
mm,
but then there is some, there's they are getting paid for their art then. And then I've seen the other step forward where you've got a decent enough collection or large enough, and you've got a bit of a fan base, and then being published is like the next step as well,
mm,
and getting a collection out there. I've got no aspirations like that. I, well, my goal is to be happy with it and to be
mm,
content and have a few pieces that you can kind of come back to again and again and perform, and then to enjoy it as well. And those are my goals at the moment with it. Yeah, and that's I feel quite happy with that. But I think you can go down that rabbit hole of trying to put stuff out on Instagram or trying to put stuff out somewhere to get that validation. People
mm.
liking your stuff, and it is nice. You probably had this like when if you do an open mic and then um, maybe on the running order they put your Instagram handle on there, and then afterwards you're getting you're getting like mini the mini wave like celebrity of you've got like another 10
Yeah,
followers and
yeah,
then a couple of extra likes and maybe a DM saying like, oh, that was really cool, well done, and you get that buzz of like, yeah, that was really cool, yeah,
yeah.
thank you. And,
Oof.
yeah,
Speaking of
keep
addiction,
yourself in
right?
check. Yeah,
Yeah.
addiction, yeah. So, but yeah, I'm enjoying it, really enjoying it,
Mm,
and I'd highly recommend it to anybody, especially like you were saying about expression. I think expression is one of those things, definitely in Western culture, it's something that's sometimes often like shunned aside, isn't it? Looked upon as something that's like, what are you doing that for? And I've got friends who are a bit like, right, you're into poetry. Oh, okay, like that sounds
mm,
nice, and they don't really get their heads around it. But equally, I've had some really supportive friends as well. Really good friend of mine came last time. Never seen a poetry event, spoken word, or open mic ever in his life, and we were sat right at the front, and the the compares, going through the order, and it's like, I want to welcome to the mic, Stevie. So Stevie gets up, walks to the front, and as Stevie gets to the front, we then realise Stevie's wearing a mini skirt and these really big high heels and these tights and a leather waistcoat. Each their own, and it was just very eye opening that this is such a diverse mix of people that you're
mm.
getting up who feel comfortable coming standing up there. So my friend was a
Yeah.
bit like, wow, I didn't expect someone that confident, to come out like that and and have a go at it. So yeah, it's a real mixed bag. And there's a lot of stuff out there that's you get quite profound stuff where people are talking about mental health, or they've written pieces about loss, bereavement, addiction, things in their life that they've had to struggle and deal with. And then you might get somebody dropping a dropping a poem or a spoken word about, going down the market with the friends or something like that, shopping with the grandma, or a bit of a mixed bag about all sorts. Again, it's just how you express yourself, isn't it, and get that across to everybody. Yeah. So maybe I immediately after this, I'm hunting it down on Bandcamp, and I'm going to find. I'm definitely going to find the old album. Yeah.
But if you do check it out, just bear in mind that was a while ago. It was a while ago. I can't remember which year it was right now, but it was a while ago. So yeah, just bear that in mind.
It's not going to come with one of them Disney disclaimers, is it? Where it's
I might
like,
have to, I might have to
at the
double. I
start
can't
of
even.
it.
I'm gonna have to go through that. What did I even say on that thing? Like, shit,
Oh
man.
my god! When you look back at it now,
I
did I say that?
I might have to put come back. This was written at a time. Disclaimer. I might have to do that actually. Let me just. But yeah, and if you did check it out, yeah, definitely let me know what you think of it. But yeah, it was a while ago.
Cool.
But yeah, that is awesome that you are doing the poetry and finding your way through that, doing it as a hobby and keeping it fun. I think that's important. Like you say, sometimes the whole kind of rabbit hole of going down stuff that it's not bad, and of course people can do it as a career, and I've known plenty of people who've done it as a career and taken it to ridiculous heights and done really, really well. So it's certainly not an impossible thing, but at the same time it's not always where everybody is. And I think sometimes we push for things that we don't necessarily really want ourselves. It's just because we feel like that's what we're supposed to do, so I feel like keeping it fun is a good approach to have, and hopefully it stays fun for as long as it can stay fun for.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
You're welcome. So let's see here. There was something I wanted to ask you as well. Kind of getting back to card games and that like. Do you find there's sort of differences or even similarities between poetry, spoken word, Magic the Gathering and that whole world? And do you find like one informs the other, or do you feel they're completely separate?
Yeah, I suppose there is some. Now I think about it, there are some similarities. The friendship, the camaraderie to it. So with with Magic and like the regular group where we play, it is a competition, and there's only one person comes out on top. But equally, like I want my friends to enjoy it and like do well during the week. So what usually happens on the group chat is we're showing off the latest purchases and the modifications like people have made to the decks, and I'm trying to encourage my mates, say like, good stuff. Like, how did you come up with that? You must have been doing some research, and I've seen that in the spoken word scene as well, where there's a lot of like, encouraging people, encouraging each other to reach out to try new things. So I think that there is that part of it, and then creativity as well. Like that's a big part of spoken word, isn't it? Being creative, and it's also a big part of making the decks that you're going to compete with and that you're going to play with. So you're trying to experiment, use different. I don't know, try and push yourself out of your comfort zone, use different cards that you probably wouldn't usually use, or try and hunt down some like different strategies as well and test them out. So that's creativity is like a big part of it as well. Anyone could go online and type in Magic the Gathering standard decks, find the most up to date deck that costs the most amount of money, and then learn how to play it. And you more than likely you'll win several games, but it sort of takes the fun out of it a little bit as well if you're doing that. It's almost like sometimes I suppose you could argue it's a bit like that pay to win, kind of scenario where you buy the best gear, you buy the best equipment, and you're gonna do really well. But it does sort of take away from the fun and that creative part of it. So yeah, I think that's where some of the similarities are between the two. And there's definitely, like you said, it's a scene, isn't it? There's where we live. Um, you head over to Manchester. There's a couple of shops there that have a couple of local gaming stores that have got like a regular crowd of people you could dive in with, and make some friends there. You could go over to Bolton, find another couple of stores down there as well, and play with lots of different people. So it is a scene. It's like an alive scene, and it's going regularly, and again very welcoming. And there's like etiquette as well that's out there. So that's always something good to learn and get your head around. But genuinely, like some very friendly people out there who want you to take part in it. Yeah, yeah, I guess it is similar. I didn't even think of that before. And yeah, I would have said like the two are completely chalk and cheese,
Yeah.
totally opposites. But yeah, there is a lot of similarities there, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do find like it's pretty incredible how so many things could be connected that we don't
Yeah.
always kind of realize right away. Like things that seem
Mm.
worlds apart when on a surface, but then you kind of look at it a bit deeper and you're like, actually, this is very similar to that. This is very similar to this, and perhaps
Mm.
over time it might be something that you learn in one field you could apply to another field, and but yeah, it's pretty cool
Yeah.
that you have like these two parts that seem so different, but beneath the surface, it's like, yeah, you still have community, you still have camaraderie, you still have the
Yeah.
creativity, you still have, I guess,
Mm.
ways of skipping the queue
Yeah.
in both
Yeah.
sides as well.
Definitely.
If you wanted to take that route, but like you said, kind of takes the fun out of it. But
Yeah.
it's still something that's there. You still have the competition, but you still have people just like pushing for you and supporting you. So
Yeah.
it's
Totally.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
different but similar. Different but same.
Yeah. Yeah, mate.
Mm.
Oh, cool.
All right. Another question I want to
Yeah.
ask before we
Yeah.
start winding down. For somebody who knows nothing about Magic the Gathering or any, I guess, card game or anything like that, like, what would be
Mm.
your advice or tips for that person if they were like, hey, how do I start this? Like, because I feel like from the outside looking at it, it does
Yeah.
look very daunting. So, what would be your tips for
Yeah.
somebody like actually maybe it's not as, or I don't know, maybe it is as daunting as it looks. I don't know. Like,
Oh, I
what would
know,
be your
mate.
tips for somebody starting out?
Oh, mate, I totally know where you're coming from. It does seem daunting. Like there's Magic started off, and there was just one way of playing it. It was a 60 card deck, and there was one set of Magic cards, and you could just mix and match, and make those decks there. And then over the years, it has grown into different metas. So there's one core way of playing the game, and then there's metas. So like Commander, for example, like I was mentioning before, it's a very different way of playing the game. There's other ones like Legacy, Modern, Pauper, all different types, but it does sound daunting. But what I would say, the best like that human interaction is probably the best way of starting. So just 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 well, they sometimes call it kitchen top. So just sitting down with your mates, having a game. You can pick up starter decks for about £8. I think, £8, and you get two decks in there. So that's you and a friend. You could start having a bit of a go at it there, just to learn the basic mechanics. And then if you wanted to get a bit more experimental, maybe buy like a deck building kit from back in the day, or even jump on eBay, buy a mixed collection, a job lot of cards, just so you can start building some decks there, and tying about with it. And then if you're feeling really brave, head down to your local gaming store, at just a casual, look for a casual event, and then just dive in there and get a couple of games going. You'd often find like there's a lot of people who are just like you, who are just starting out with it. So they're always good people to start, playing with as well. And then you'll always find that there's friendly people out there who are more than happily like show you the game. And so I remember one of the first events I went to. We call it Friday Night Magic. So that's always a mainstay across like the gaming community. Went to one of them for the first time, I'm really nervous. Showed up and like 4 lads like jump in on this game, mate. So I jumped in, got absolutely destroyed. But I learned a lot from that as well. Learned a lot of things like etiquette as well, and what's to be expected. Passing the turn, things like the stack. So there's a lot to learn, but just enjoy it, just embrace it. A it kind of reminds me of like years ago when I first got into comics. That was a that was a big daunting thing. You were saying daunting. That's exactly how I felt walking into a comic shop and then looking to invest myself into a comic series and just having no idea where to start because you pick something up off the shelf and it'd be like I don't know, Action Comics, 975 or whatever like that,
Yeah.
deep into it, and you're like, what the hell? I've not even read number one yet.
Right.
So, but the more you sort of engage with it and toy around with it, you see that it's not that daunting, and it is welcoming as well for you to jump into and understand. So, a lot of the games made like that that the that they kind of make the game so anybody could join in at some point and then embrace it and get used to it. So that would be my advice: is just embrace it, just embrace being a noob and being
Yeah.
someone who's like totally new to it. Don't worry about it. Try and aim to have fun. Don't aim to be like the master of it. The prodigy who's walking in. Redefining the game. Just go in to have a good laugh. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Indeed. I guess it's
Yeah.
like with anything, just start, have fun with it, and go from there.
Yeah, just go from there, see what happens. Yeah, totally, totally.
All right. Well, Andy, I
Yeah.
appreciate you coming through. Thank you for taking some time out to chat with me. But
Oh,
before
mate.
we end, was there anything you wanted to add or anything that we might have missed that you wanted to say? Um, make sure
Uh,
haven't cut you off or anything like that. Or
no, no, pal, no, it's gone really well. Do you want me to perform a piece of my a
uh,
poem for you?
okay. I mean, if
Would
you don't
that be
mind,
appropriate? No, no, not at
I don't
all.
mind. Oh wait,
It-
is it going to be like 5 hours? That might be a bit of a warning then.
No, 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 pal, no, no. It's just with you mentioning before. What was the name of your album again? It was about the final
Oh,
stage,
end of
final
level
boss,
boss.
end of level boss. So like,
Yeah.
did you make some video game kind of references in there? I'm
Oh
guessing.
yeah. There's quite a
Yeah,
few. There's quite a few video game references
right.
in. Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. That just as soon as you said that, funnily enough, I've got a poem about about video games, and
Okay. Well, I guess that's
yeah,
an
yeah,
appropriate one to end on then, as this is a
yeah,
geek
yeah,
gaming geeky. Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's
yeah. So I wrote this piece a little while ago. We performed it in Clitheroe. It was an outdoor literature festival in the summer, and when I looked at the lineup, there were a lot of poets there that I knew that were very funny. So I thought I really want to try and make them laugh as well. So I want to try and jump in on that. And I was toying about with things around computer games, and I start off kind of a bit with computer games, but then try and go into a bit of like what I was thinking about society at the time as well. So this is called cheat codes.
cool.
Uh, so do you remember when video games had cheat codes? They helped protect you from those powerful Zangief throws. Or
Mm.
on Mario, you could jump out of bounds, end the level real easy. You rescue the princess whilst high on mushrooms with your best bro Luigi. Or if you're struggling with Revenge of Shinobi, or there's an easy cheat to help you slice up like Obi-Wan Kenobi. On multiplayer, GoldenEye, like my brother would say, stop choosing odd job the small guy. Or on Sonic, you want to defeat Dr. Robotnik. On the title screen, up, down, left, right, air start real quick. Now, from fiction to real life, here's a question to answer. If a cheat code could be entered, would you do it via chancer? Would you start with first infinite money, invincibility? Personally, I'd be afraid to discover all the desires hidden within me. Would you share codes with strangers? Resolve all the problems that have been going on for ages? Or would you turn invisible, spy on citizens, break into that weird neighbour's house, confirm your suspicions, but maybe not? Instead, you could get something wholesome done, like give a cancer patient extra armor to fight on, because if cheat codes were real, I would probably use them. With no shame, I'd get strong without causing mayhem. but cheat codes could create catastrophe. And that's what life's not about for me. It's meant to live for honesty. And that's the strange thing about the world in today's age. There are both cheaters and codes, and some will use them to put them on the final level boss stage. I think about cheating that it distorts reality, makes the culprit lose empathy, gain a sense of grandiosity. So maybe throw paranoia into the mix. Just a simple code, provide a quick fix. So now just leave it. Just do what's real instead. Align your soul and your head. And live for goodwill. So play the game of life without being encumbered with a cheater's sorrowful will, knowing the days are numbered. Cheers.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, the clicks. Thank you.
Oi, I like that. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I definitely remember some of the old school cheat codes, and like you say, going into life, and how would cheat codes happen? I like that the drawing parallels between fiction and reality, and
Yeah.
what that mean in real life. If you had there, was it due to your life? Is sometimes you want to
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
ahead, but it's better to kind of like not just skip and just kind of you know
Mm.
yeah. There's a lot in there. I
Yeah.
liked it, man. There's
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Right. I forgot about the clicks. Yeah.
All right, dude. Andy, thank you for taking some time to chat with me. Thank you for
Oh,
your stories and the poetry. That was amazing.
yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming through. Guys, to all those watching and or listening, thank you for that. Drop any suggestions or recommendations of people you want to see me interview, and I see what I can do. But that's going to be all for now. So until whenever, if ever, peace.